Want to welcome in right now Mario Moccia, Director of Athletics, New Mexico State University. The Aggies, who played yesterday a home basketball game at the Don Haskins Center. What a surreal experience. But, I mean, let's be honest. It's COVID, Mario. This is what we're doing with COVID. We have these crazy, crazy situations. And first off, it's good to have you back on the show here on the program today. How are you?
I'm doing well. Gee whiz, we had two Aggie athletic events yesterday, one in volleyball, one in men's basketball, one in volleyball again today. I think that's like the 22nd consecutive WAC win for Mike Jordan's squad. So, I wouldn't say we're anywhere close to being normal, but at least we have some normalcy that, over the last 24, 48 hours.
Is volleyball playing right now at Memorial Gym?
No, not yet. We secured the gym, and thanks to Ben, our former associate head coach, now the UTEP head coach, as well as all the folks that oversee that gym specifically. But by the time the arrangement was made, we just could not ask our opponent to change their travel plans from Tucson to El Paso. So we went ahead and played. The WAC is playing volleyball matches on Mondays and Tuesdays. So we played the last 2 days in Tucson, but from now on, our home volleyball matches will be played in El Paso.
This is a wild situation. So, and again, I'm still trying to understand just the rationale behind what Governor Michelle Lujan Grisham announced last week, which is you can practice in New Mexico. You can work out, you can live, but you can't play games there. So again, have you been able to get any clarification as to what makes it safe to work out, practice, go to school, live, but not actually compete in games? Is it just bringing an opposing team into the state? Is that the biggest concern right now? Mario, can you hear me?
I'm going to assume so, Cap. I don't know if we've gotten a direct answer to that. Yeah, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
I can. Go ahead.
Can you hear me, Cap?
Yes.
Okay, yeah.
I can.
I don't think we've got a direct answer to that question, but you got to understand when you were facing not being able to practice in the state, what was just allowed, less than a week ago, having all the teams being able to come back and practice in Las Cruces, and then compete out of state, and then come back and not have to quarantine. That's huge. Mm-hmm. So we certainly would love to play our games in Las Cruces on campus, but we'll keep a good thought and hope the numbers will go down, and we'll be able to play soon.
Okay, so I'm sure for you, when you heard the news last week, the biggest challenge was immediately scrambling and starting to find venues in El Paso that could ultimately accommodate you on very, very short notice. Is that pretty accurate when you look at what you've been doing along with Braun Cartwright and your whole staff over the last 4 or 5 days?
That's 100% accurate. Yeah, we've kind of mapped out every single venue that we might consider. We certainly tapped all of our resources from our friends in the media, from our friends, maybe in the mayor's office, certainly Bernie Olivas, the executive director of the Tony the Tiger Sun Bowl. So we try to call everybody we knew to say, hey, what are all the venues? What are all the possibilities? Let's start getting on the phones.
And you've had a lot of help. I know that's the nice thing about it is that all of a sudden you're given a list. You have places to contact, people to speak to. It's fascinating to me because UTEP has obviously been accommodating. You were in the Haskins Center yesterday playing against Western New Mexico, which was kind of a surreal experience. Monday at 4:00 playing basketball. But let's be honest, if you're Chris Jans, you have to get games in right now. You're in the middle of conference play. You're coming off of a long COVID layoff, the second of the season, and you've got to get your team back in game shape and realize what it's like to play opponents again, right?
Yeah, I was looking at the calendar. We've had when we played Cal Northridge, that was our second game, I think, in 32 days. And last night was the third game. I think, no, when we play Grand Canyon on Friday, it'll be our third game in 58 days. So we were definitely desperate to get on a court against somebody else wearing a different jersey with referees in a real arena. And you couldn't ask for a better location than the Haskins Center. You know, if you had your pick, obviously that checks every box.
Meanwhile, you mentioned Grand Canyon. Are those going to be road games? Are you going back up to Phoenix to play those games this upcoming weekend?
Yeah, those were always going to be true road games. So that'll be on their home court on Friday and Saturday. Big games, obviously. They're something like 10-3.
Mhm.
And their losses are to Arizona State by a point. I think Nevada and maybe San Francisco, Colorado, something like that. So they've lost to outstanding competition, and they're going to be pretty formidable.
Absolutely right. And ironically, that was the school that you had the agreement to play in their older gym before the announcement came that gave you the opportunity to go back to Las Cruces.
That's correct. And you know what, Cap? We still have that on hold. We have yet to 100% secure a place in El Paso for men's and women's basketball. But so we don't want to give something up and then something happens here. But hopefully, we'll secure a place in El Paso very soon, and we'll be able to cut the Phoenix locations loose so they can use that for other things. But yeah, it was unbelievably generous of them. Somebody who's a rival of ours, we certainly have had the better of the games historically, but it was very compassionate for them to kind of reach out when we needed it and get us a place to play.
Mario Moccia, Director of Athletics, New Mexico State, joining us here on Sports Talk as we continue. What are the venues that right now are currently in play for men's basketball and women's basketball, for that matter, throughout the rest of the season?
Well, I tell you what, Cap. Obviously, our first choice would be the Haskins Center. And I've really got to thank President Wilson and the general manager of the Haskins Center, Jorge Vasquez, as well as Jim Center for kind of making last night happen. But the Haskins Center, I mean, it has all the infrastructure. It has the personnel that knows exactly what to do. I mean, the staff over there is lights out. I mean, they are phenomenal. Playing, UTEP men are playing, and when they're on the road, the women are playing. So we spoke and we said, hey, if there happens to be a COVID event with a UTEP opponent or UTEP itself, and there's an opening, and there's not going to be any games in there, we would love to see if we could rent the facility. Mm-hmm. But it doesn't look like the Haskins Center is going to work out if nobody goes on pause. We are looking at a couple of high schools tomorrow. So Braun Cartwright, my deputy AD, and AKA Jiminy Cricket, my conscience, says, hey, don't release those on the radio until we go look at them, please. So I won't break any news, but we will be in El Paso tomorrow looking at a couple of high schools. I'll let the speculation begin. I just can't confirm anything. And then we'll also be looking at, Kat, help me out, I guess it's Memorial, where our volleyball program will play.
Yes, Memorial Gym, exactly right, which in the past has been ultimately the home to CUSA games in the tournament when they've played men's and women's games. We've seen Memorial be the home there too. So that's interesting. So you've got the Haskins Center, Memorial Gym, and there's high school venues. Now, I'm assuming high school's got to be the toughest challenge because ultimately you got to go to the district, you got to go through athletic directors, not just the high schools themselves, but you got to go above just to make sure you have the proper clearance and they understand what's really in play to turn those facilities into potential home games for you.
Right, because when you're talking, remember last night's game was broadcast nationally. Fox Sports Arizona, you could watch that in Bangor, Maine, or Orlando, Florida, or you name it. Mm-hmm. So yeah, it's got to have the capability that we can televise the game nationally. Hopefully the high schools see that as great exposure for them, their programs and what they're trying to accomplish as well. But you're right, and that's where our deputy COO Bron Cartwright has been invaluable. He has, we kind of broke up some of the things. I took the Haskins Center and the other private facility. He's been on the high schools, so he's been really working that. And then, certainly Ben has been instrumental working with our volleyball program with Memorial Gym.
Well, to me, it's interesting because you still have some time. I mean, going to Phoenix this weekend, you have the opportunity to ultimately get it done for next week. If UTEP is the venue for you, whether it's the Haskins Center or Memorial Gym, I guess the key then would be times, right? Because you could be playing potentially on the same day that the UTEP men or women would be in the same building.
Yeah, and I don't think that's going to work. I talked to Jorge, the GM over there. I just don't think that's a possibility with shoot around times. Hey, it's their facility. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? It's not right to ask them to move heaven and earth to accommodate us. But if they weren't using it, that's something we would certainly love to slide in.
Could you potentially do like a Thursday, Sunday, since the Conference USA games are Friday, Saturday? Could you work around and with the WAC and be able to do a possible Thursday, Sunday matchup for those games?
Yeah, it's not out of the question. Obviously, you got to have the other teams buy off on that. It would alter their travel times, their preparation times. I think the WAC has been great on saying, hey, look, this venue may not be the Pan Am, but tough. That's their venue. You're going to play on it. I don't know how much they're going to be willing to really alter the schedules and things like that. I will tell you this, Cap. We're talking about football is coming up too. We're going to play a couple games in football, and the Sun Bowl. I know everybody's focused on basketball, but that's a potential venue for us as well. So we're working with the Sun Bowl folks as well. I know Coach Martin has talked to Coach Dimmel. More of a courtesy call, obviously, and we've been dealing with the facilities folks. So there's a lot of balls in play. We've been talking to Brad Taylor at the Chihuahuas. We tried to get in with El Paso Community College. That necessarily didn't work, but most everybody has been really accommodating.
Well, that's good news because we still have right now about another 4 months left for the athletic season until May when things really wrap up. And that's assuming things stay on time. So, hopefully by the time the 21-22 athletic season rolls around, things are much better off for you where you can then go back to your normal facilities and play games. But for now, it's been just a surreal athletic year. And I find it really interesting that ultimately you've got so many of these people here in El Paso that have gone to bat to try to help you guys out to make sure you can get through a season.
Well, I think, and the key, a lot of people don't like to hear this because but it's a lot about relationships. And, when I call you up at an indecent hour at night and you're like shooting me numbers, and Bernie Olivas is doing the same thing, and Lou Romano is doing the same thing, and Andy Morgan, a lot of those people are, hopefully you've built yourself up to, you have a really good relationship with folks, and they know that you're really working hard and they want to help you. So, I'm unbelievably appreciative, not just to all the UTEP folks who helped us with the Monday game, but all the folks such as yourself who, put us in contact with people that we don't necessarily know them. We don't know their numbers. And, that greases the wheels significantly.
Ideally, best case scenario for you, you get a home soon, whether it's potentially a university facility or a high school facility in El Paso. You can announce that, you can play your games. Those would be televised, and then you just get back to that sense of normalcy that you haven't had all year. And I'm sure Chris Jans and the team would love to just know that, hey, this is in place. We don't have to worry about day to day, week to week. All we've got to do is play basketball and just try to stay COVID free.
Yeah, I think that's right. Obviously being able to spend the night in your own bed is huge, for the athletes. I think that was a massive shot in the arm. Those of them who have hybrid classes, a lot of them are online. But there's just that little dose of normalcy. But I thought it was fun. Getting down there in the Haskins Center, we're shooting around in a ballroom. Now we're in a big time arena. The game's on TV. You got Russ Bradford calling the game, telling stories about UTEP and the Bear, and his time with Lou, and I thought it was a really neat experience for everybody.
That's awesome. I'm looking at a tweet right now from Ivan who said that if the El Paso downtown arena had been completed, the Aggies could have rented out that city building when the Haskins Center wasn't available because of a schedule conflict. And it's so true. You know, we were hoping this downtown arena that was voted on in 2012 would have been built years ago, but we're still waiting right now. And unfortunately, that kind of puts a tough spot for you. I mean, even the Coliseum, which could virtually be, has now become a place for COVID vaccination. So you kind of look at how the chain reaction has gone, and all these different facilities are being used for different things right now, Mario.
And, we talked to the Coliseum folks, and it was available. But at the time, if you recall, when this whole thing first started out, El Paso wasn't seen as an option because it was the quote unquote hot spot. Now that things have cooled down a little bit, and, we're not talking about staying in El Paso, we go there and come back. That would have been great because we could have brought our floor in, we could have brought our goals in. The personnel, if they weren't working minor games, are right there as well. But, in the interim time, as you said, it's now being used for a vaccine dispensary, whatever the proper terminology is. And that was unavailable, but that's another place we looked at.
I hear you. Well, listen, I'm excited that at least you've got things coming together. That's the most important thing. Before I wrap things up, best case scenario, today's Tuesday. When do you hope to have a plan in place regarding basketball venue for the rest of the season?
Well, I think it would be great if if I could get a commitment tomorrow, once we see these places and say, hey, here's the dates we need. Can we have it? Yes or no? If somebody says yes, I'm leaving this. I'm leaving the city of El Paso, knowing where I'm going to play. That would be the best case scenario. Certainly within the next 48 hours of the trip.
I think the nicest thing for you is this. Even though we could be talking about high school facilities, there are some facilities that are so nice, you could say that they are better than some college basketball venues that we would normally have. And that's the nice thing about the city of El Paso is some of the newer facilities have been renovated. And when you go in and look around, it's going to blow you away how nice, a $30 million renovation is for some of these facilities in El Paso.
Yeah, no, I'm really anxious to get down there and take a look at the facilities and, see them with our own two eyes. Obviously, the basketball has to work. It's got to have the 3-point line. But remember, we've got to have instant replay. We've got to have places for announcers, media. So locker rooms, as you mentioned, has to have availability for shoot arounds. So we'll come down there with the checklist and see how it goes.
Good luck to you, and keep in touch. And Mario, it's always great to have you back on the show. Thank you so much.
Hey, thanks, Cap.
You got it.